Well, thank you very much for the invitation and the possibility to present the position of BEREC to the draft opinion, draft recommendation of the Commission. And I'm sorry, after these visions of Leonidas presented in a most agreeable form, I have to come down to the basics. And, well, I'm sorry, but I think the basics matter. First of all, I think it's quite clear that the aim of the European Commission and the national aims are quite similar. We see the digital agenda of the Commission. I've here mentioned the German broadband strategy. We heard of the FTTH plans of Greece. So the aim to bring more broadband to the people, to make the economy future-proof and to present consumers' wealth is, I think, a quite clear one. And to make it quite obvious, we are looking for private investment, so we have to be attractive to investors, private investors, to attract private money. And that's a good thing that we work together to give signals to the investors which are not converging, but which are aiming in the same direction. So, bright incentives for investment. Is there a silver bullet, a King's Road or something like that? I'm not sure. I don't think. I think we have a lot of contributions aiming in the same direction. The recommendation might be one of those parts which we need to pave the way to more broadband, but it's only one. Regulation matters, but it's not all. Just to make it quite clear, it's a restatement of that what Carlotta said. We agree in the objectives of the recommendation as BEREC, and it's quite clear that we are looking for competition and we want the deployment of NGA networks. We have intermediate objectives, we pricing flexibility, predictability, and stable copper prices, and we want a level playing field, while BEREC agrees and shares these objectives. As we know, all these objectives are not in the same direction. We need to find a balance between all these objectives, and I think we have to calibrate these objectives in the right way, and that cannot be done without the experience of national regulators, because they know the market and they know their national circumstances. Well, I found 4 pillars. I had been a little bit disturbed because Carlotta had only 3 pillars, but it's more or less the same which we are talking about. We are ensuring equivalence of access. It's about costing methods. It's the non-imposition of cost orientation in NGA wholesale access products and economic replicability. Let me go through the points of the recommendation. The recommendation tells us that effective non-discrimination is best achieved by the application of equivalence of input. That means that the wholesale branch of the incumbent faces the same conditions also in IT processes than the competitors. And we should examine the proportionality of imposing this equivalence of input, and if not proportionate, we can impose equivalence of output. Well, I think in the main we share. Equivalence of input is the surest way to guarantee non-discrimination. It guarantees a playing field between incumbent and competitors. But the proportionality test must be open. It must not be prejudice against EOO and for EOI. The voluntary offer, which is implemented in the recommendation to implement EOI, is not itself sufficient. And there's still concern that this proportionality test is, from the light of the Commission's position, presumed. If you look at the costing methods, the draft recommendation proposes, but bottom up, a long-run incremental cost plus, that means inclusive overall cost. And they are looking for stable wholesale prices for the local loop unbundled, last mile, and that is a range which they propose of 8 to 10 euro a month. Well, BEREC supports the stable copper price incentives, and we are in line with the principles of cost orientation. And that is our guiding line, the cost orientation, not a range, to make it quite clear. We would prefer that the Commission proposes key principles of costing model, but not to propose specific methods which we should use. And we propose that this range of 8 to 10 euro per month should be, let's say, an estimate, should be indicative and not, let's say, a target band proposed for the regulators. Just a small point, I would also look forward that the same costing methodology would be applied for fixed termination rates and mobile termination rates. That's for insiders, I guess. When can we have no cost orientation? I think that's a major step, because we are looking for structural situations where we can relax in regulation. And the idea of the Commission is that we should not impose cost orientation on NGA services under certain conditions. That is provided on the basis of equivalence of input, non-discrimination, a strong non-discrimination remedy. There should be technical and economic replicability, and there should be a significant competitive constraints. Well, first of all, BEREC agrees with the pricing flexibility in this range, and but we also look upon possible unintended consequences of this thing. It's a huge step forward which we take in non-regulation, so we have to look whether there is other scenarios. Do we have a competitive framework which is promoting that? We should have discretion over timing and lifting the cost orientation, because we have to look at the national markets, the situation in the national market, and we have to look at the procedures which guarantee that EOI, when we have considered EOI as the remedy, that EOI is implemented correctly. We need milestones, we need penalties, and so on, and perhaps also imposing again cost orientation if failed. The economic replicability is also important. That means we need a test that competitors can replicate the products of the incumbent. The Commission proposes a test that is efficient, the equally efficient operator EEO test, but, well, it has constraints. First of all, we think it's a positive way, but it might not always be the best solution, especially if you look at a situation where you have dynamic efficiency in mind. That means investment, and that is especially the range which we talk about when we discuss the draft recommendation. If you have dynamic efficiency, the equally efficient operator test might only be a test pro-incumbent and against competitors, but we need competitors to invest too. So we would propose there's also a point where we have a reasonable efficient operator test in the market. We would also propose that there is a margin squeeze test, which we all introduced in the market in the regulation nationally, that there should be a margin squeeze test still and not abolished. And we would also like to employ higher cost standards, as the Commission does. Well, as Carlotta also mentioned already, is that we adopted an opinion and we sent it to the Commission. We know that that is a challenging project. It has been a challenging project for BEREC itself because we had to find a solution of all member countries with different histories, with different political frameworks, with different situations in competition. And we did a 56-page opinion which has been drafted in less than 3 months. That's really a benchmark for further opinions which BEREC has to evolve. And it involved also 2 working groups of the BEREC side. The next step is that the Commission should revise the draft recommendation, taking the opinion into utmost account, and then bring the revised draft recommendation to the inter-service negotiations. We are waiting for that. The version which has been discussed in COCOM on the 7th May was not agreed in the inter-service discussions. And in the next COCOM meeting, we are waiting for that. That is the 3rd of June. Well, as I mentioned, the inter-service consultation is still ongoing. We will have a working paper which is presented on the 7th May. We are now looking for this working paper, whether we find that if the BEREC opinion is included, is that taken utmost account. We found that Carlotta made her point, yes, from her point of view, the BEREC opinion is taken utmost account. I can say halfway. There are parts which are taken into account. For example, the target range of 8 to 10 euro, which I mentioned, is now handled as an estimate, which is quite fine. There's more pricing flexibility. There's also that EOI can be introduced only for products, not for wholesale markets. But the clarifications are mostly done in recitals. And as there are a lot of lawyers among us, recitals is giving only an interpretation of the recommendation. The text of the recommendation counts. And the text of the recommendation is in this field not really changed. And so we have also contradiction in recitals, which we have to look through. We have still a preference for EOI, this equivalent operator, and so on and so on. So we have to look for that in detail, and I think we should restart a discussion with the Commission, because our main aim is to come together with a sound text, with a sound signal to the market that we stand together, that we are looking for, as you see here, predictable regulatory environment. We want flexibility. We want that NRAs have the necessary flexibility in these situations. We want consistency. We want that the growing complexity is fit in this framework. And we want that in the end, also consumers pay for broadband. And that is, I think, the great lack if we talk about silver bullets for investment. You can change the regulatory framework as you like. If there's no demand, you will not find investors. And demand, as Leonidas showed us, demand might be in the medium term there. In the short term, we have a lack of demand. Thank you very much.